Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm your host, Rising Oblivion, and welcome to a brand new series that I'm bringing over here to the channel called Megaten Mysteries, as you can see in the title. And basically what this series is going to be is it's going to be a series that delves into mysterious or hidden facts within Megaten games, where I try to do research on it, either get more facts about it, or these urban legends or myths or whatever. Across all of these different Megaten games, there's so many small secrets and things that you just can't quite understand until you research it a little bit more, and certain weird connections from certain games to other ones that we could sort of look at here. So this Megaten Mysteries series is going to be basically me researching and finding certain, I guess, urban legends, I guess you could say, throughout certain Megaten series and trying to just explain them more or research more about them. And for this first episode, we actually have a really cool one, and that is the vampire girl. So basically, if you haven't heard this before, and I will say I am not the first person to talk about this, but I am going to be the first person, I think, to ever put this into a video, into a lot of research on this. And this is the vampire girl, a girl who shows up in Persona 3, 4, and 5. Yes, she's technically supposed to have been in the, the trilogy of the, P Studio Persona games. If you didn't know, Persona 1 and Persona 2's duology kind of were done just by Atlus in general, while P Studios was a separate thing. So P3, P4, and P5 sort of had the same people, while P1 and P2's duology was kind of done by a different team. So with P3, 4, and 5, they're able to actually have some type of, I don't know, I guess continued story, I guess you could say, with, and we see this with like Rise and Kanamine. Whenever we see them in Persona 5, we actually get to see that stuff there, and I believe we get a poster of Rise that you can put in your room in Persona 5. So there are certain things carried over, and basically what this vampire girl is supposed to be is a character who's carried through Persona 3, Persona 4, and also Persona 5. So first things first here, I want to say there's not a ton of evidence in this Persona 5, but there is for sure solid evidence of her being in P3 and P4. So let's just start things off with P3 and get ourselves acquainted with this so-called vampire girl. So this vampire girl is none other than Chihiro Fushimi, who is actually a character that you meet in Persona 3, which makes sense. Like I said, it's the start of the sort of trilogy done by the P Studios team, who's, funny enough, actually voiced by Cassandra Lee Morris, who actually does Morgana's VA as well, which is interesting but doesn't really mean a lot here in terms of what we're talking about. So she is a student there. She is in Persona 3. She is a sophomore as well, a 1 year below the protagonist when it takes place in P3. It takes the role of the treasurer in the student council club. She's also a part of the Justice Arcana as well. So we do know that about her, and we do know that she does take part within there. But let's actually go ahead and talk a little bit more about her. So really, she's just sort of a normal character. Mostly you can see that she's a shy individual, and she's not comfortable around men, is what she says, and stands up for herself due to her being expressed by others. It's implied that the protagonist is the first person she began to develop a bond with. So she has a special bond with our character, which is something we kind of need to talk about whenever it comes to this whole vampire theory, and her maybe potentially knowing more than what she actually lets on. So not only is Chihiro in the P3 game, but she's also within the P3 movies as well, which makes sense. Most of the casts from the game are also included within the movies, but not only that, she's also in Persona 4, which we should go into here right now. So yes, we actually end up running into Chihiro whenever we go to the Persona 3 school with the Persona 4 characters. So typically you would get to this part and you would talk to her and you really wouldn't think much about it, but why exactly they pick her is sort of interesting. I think there are other bigger main cast characters they could have chosen from, but she is the one that they actually choose to have her be here. She's a little bit older. This is supposedly supposed to be 1 year after the events of Persona 3, so of course she's probably now a junior in high school, so it does make sense for her to have been there, but it's her connection that brings us over to Persona 5 that is actually interesting. But there are some more tidbits here that we can't talk about. She gets over her phobia of men, which is sort of weird, and I'm not 100% sure why she sort of has that, but she does reveal that she had taken the role of president of the student council of that school, the P3 school. So whenever we meet her, Yusuke, Kanji, Chie all talk about her, Yosuke and Kanji are attracted to her beauty, which is sort of interesting because she has a fear of men, but a lot of men are suddenly attracted to her. Our P4 cast, all the men also being, ones to do that as well. And Chie notices and talks about how Chihiro beats her in all her feminine traits, which is sort of interesting, but somewhat a vampire type quality. It's actually not too far-fetched because in typical vampire lore, you attract the opposite gender typically. I mean, don't cancel from that. You attract the, opposite sex typically whenever you're a vampire. And you could just say it's just Yusuke and Kanji, it is what it is, but I don't think Kanji would be that way. Yosuke, I mean, it's Yosuke, but Kanji sort of is interesting how it goes about that. And I guess the protagonist, we're supposed to be in his shoes, we're supposed to be thinking about that. But let's actually move on over and talk about some of the connections that we might have in P5. I mean, without a doubt, we know she's in P3 and P4. She's kind of having some things that are kind of interesting talking about here. She's in the P4 animation as well, and the P3 animation. Let's actually talk about P5 and see if she actually has a link there. So I did some research to try and figure out how long it actually takes place between Persona 4 and Persona 5. How long is the gap? Because there's a lot of different sources that say different things. Even the calendars in game aren't necessarily correct. Some say it's 2016, some say it's 2022. It's kind of hard to figure out whether it makes sense or not. P3 and P4, according to the games, make it seem like it's only a year afterwards. However, they were spaced a decent farther a bit across each other in terms of when they were actually released. So some people say it's 1 year after each other. Some say it's actually 3 years after each other for 3 to 4. So when it comes from 4 to 5, we can assume it's supposed to be longer, but I think we're supposed to suppose it's supposed to be around 4-ish years, if not more than that, from P4 to P5, which means if we are to see Chihiro in P5, she's supposed to look drastically different or be drastically different if we actually see her. But there are a couple of different theories as to who she actually is, a character that we have seen before in Persona 5. There are theories that she actually is a character who has been seeing us and watching us in Persona 5. She keeps a close eye on us. In the first theory, and I know this is a little far-fetched because she doesn't look as close to her as the other character it could possibly be, but it is the creepy female student. So if you haven't played Persona 5 and noticed this, it's not something that's super easy to actually see, but the creepy female student is a character who you can find throughout P5, and some of the dialogue you actually get is super creepy. I mean, obviously it says creepy female student. It says, if they come, I'll show them no mercy, I'll make them bleed. It'll be a bloodstorm, giggles. So she obviously has some crazy things going on with her, but yeah, it's sort of interesting thinking that this could potentially be her spying on us, seeing as how, for some reason, maybe Chihiro knows about the Velvet Room, knows about Igor, knows about all of this stuff going on with these certain protagonists. Either she could be a person from the Velvet Room or something along the lines of a god or something like Igor or the Velvet Attendants. And she is able to know and tries to spy on the different people who are given these powers from Igor. Now, this is obviously just a theory. It's a big theory just to think about this type of stuff in general, but it is kind of cool to think about the fact that she is in multiple games and potentially could be in P5. I mean, who's to know? We do know that there are certain things, like I said, from P4 in P5 and vice versa for other games, but we still have to dig a little bit deeper here, and there is one more character who she could potentially also be. So let's take a look at that now. So the other character could also be is the newspaper girl, which we also see her within the manga, which does make her seem a little more significant. The creepy girl I don't think is within the manga, but the newspaper girl is actually a little bit more significant. I think if Atlus were going to be doing something like this, they would try to make her look a little more significant and probably throw her within the manga. If this is true and this actually is Chihiro, which I think she looks a little more similar to this character than the creepy student, but she actually has the glasses, has the hair and stuff like that. I know that's not a ton to go off of, but she is trying to write things down as if she's collecting information. That could have been what she was doing in P4, and of course we obviously know how close she is to the protagonist in P3. That might have been what sort of set her off and maybe gained her some certain type of powers or something like that to then try and seek out the P4 protagonist, keep tabs on him, and now the P5 protagonist and keep tabs on him. What it's for, it's kind of in the air, but we do know that this newspaper girl actually is writing stuff down. She keeps notes about her and knows you know, multiple things about the Phantom Thieves and then things about Joker. I think I just said her, but I meant him for Joker. They are keeping a, you know, close tab on them, and is a character that you can see, like I said, in the manga and the game, which means that if this Chihiro, then that means that not only is it the, you know, P3 movies, the P3 game, also the P4 game, and the P4 movie and manga, I believe, as well, and also, you know, P5 and P5's manga also. So she has literally been everywhere, and according to what I've sort of dug up, Igor is the only character within the Persona series to constantly reoccur, whether it is in a different form, like in P5, then eventually we get the normal Igor. Technically, this might be the only character that we have. Obviously not in P1 or 2 for sort of the stuff I was explaining at the beginning of the video, but from what I can tell here, at least P3, P4, and maybe P5 if this whole theory sort of has any validity to it. Like I said, I'm not the first person to talk about this. I couldn't find where it was. It was a very long Reddit thread and there was a lot more to it, but this is the kind of evidence that I so far see, and so far all that I've collected on this subject. If you have more to tell me, please down in the comment section below, give me some more information about this. So let's give a little bit of a consensus at what this might mean. So we could have potentially a either secret Atlus character that might be potentially either, I don't know, time traveling, because she looks young in P5 if this is supposed to be her. She really hasn't aged as much as what we would have thought from P4 to P5 would have been. You should assume that she'd be within, you know, well within her 20s at least, but that is why I have it titled her as a vampire. Either a vampire type thing or a type of god that just really doesn't age or anything like that, or has certain abilities and powers to basically shapeshift or sort of look exactly however she wants to be. She can fit in as a normal student and get the jobs and things like that that she wants done. We could also assume that potentially that the newspaper girl is actually also the creepy student at the same time. Would she maybe take multiple forms in order to actually fit in and be able to spy on us more? Maybe she was doing that in P4. This is a far-fetched theory. I know how it sounds kind of crazy, but I think this kind of stuff is interesting to think about. There are crazier things that we could actually speculate within the other Persona games, or just Megaten games in general, so why not give it, you know, a little swing or a little thought or something. Who knows? We might be hot on a trail for something. Who really knows? There could be a lot more to this, but yeah, basically we could have a potential character that has either powers like Igor or has a little bit more to her than what we actually sort of understand. I don't know. I want to go through these games again, play them some more, maybe come up with more evidence. I could do a sequel to this, but I'm more than likely going to be talking about a different subject. Let me know what you think. Do you think that she's actually within P5? We know she's in P3, P4. Do we know exactly what she's doing? I haven't played P3 a whole lot, so I don't have a lot going on there. I know most of what I can see from the evidence and the research that I've done, so please let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think about this? Is there anything else that we can sort of add to this? And what would you like to see next? What would you like me to actually research? I am planning to do some more videos like this, so if you like this, please drop a like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified whenever I go live again. That's going to be it for now, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.